everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Cry, Laugh, Eat, Making Friends with Your Emotions. This is Ruth.
Hello, this is Helen. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to let you know that we have a new website.
Woohoo!
We've been working very hard on it. Thank you very much.
Elvis has left the building.
Yeah, if you look in the show notes, you'll see a link that you can click on and have a look at our website if you like. And don't forget to watch the video. We've put a little hello video on there too. And please feel free to say hello to us from the contact form, or even if you look on the podcast app that you have, there's a little space that says send us a text, and you can say hello to us. We'd love your feedback on our podcast or on our website, or even if you just want to say hello, we just would love to hear from you.
Okay, last week we spoke about the two dashboard lights that show up on your car, the orange one and the red one. A general rule of thumb to follow is that when the orange light shows up, or sometimes it's yellow for some cars, it's a warning. It's warning you that there's a problem with the car and it needs your attention quickly. And the red light means you need to stop driving immediately as soon as it's safe, that you need to get the problem checked as soon as possible. So why are we talking about these orange and red lights? It's because often there are orange and red lights with regard to our emotions. And sometimes we don't even know that the light switch is on. And so we thought that today we just want to explore just a little bit the orange light. We won't go into the red light. We're just going to talk about the orange light that might switch on emotionally for you. Like, do you know when your orange light is on? Well, I certainly didn't for a long time, and I'm still getting used to it. I'm still trying to figure out. And it's interesting because now Helen and I will say things like, orange light, orange light. And I think if you use that, it's just a really simple, easy, quick way to say to yourself, hey, something needs attention. I don't want to get to the red light where I collapse.
Yeah. Remembering that orange light is a warning. So for us emotionally, it might be a warning, hey, you need to think about this or slow down.
Helen and I were talking about it during the week, about the orange lights, and I was saying to Helen, so do you know when your orange light's on? And we started talking about that, and how can we know that it's even on? And there was one simple word that is really important to be aware of if you want to know if your orange light's on. And that word is, ta-da!
Drum roll, change.
Yay.
Changes.
Exactly.
Change can be a great thing. Change is often good because it brings growth. But sometimes changes don't strengthen or uplift us. And they're the changes here that we're talking about, aren't they?
Exactly. So you need to be aware of those changes that are happening to you that actually leave you feeling really drained or just really off. So what do we mean by those changes?
We came up with a little list, and one of the first things is it might be changes in your sleep patterns. You might be normally a good sleeper and suddenly you're just not sleeping well.
Or like me, I've always had erratic sleep patterns, and I found myself sleeping all the time, like wanting to just sleep. And so it can be any type of change in your sleep pattern.
So a change to having more sleep might be a good change, but when you're feeling tired all the time and needing to sleep all the time, actually might not be a good change.
The next one. Well, this is a big one.
Changes in your eating patterns. Is that the one you were thinking of?
Yes. How can you tell with eating, Helen?
If my orange light is on, I will just want food.
All the time?
All the time. And think I need sweet. I'm seeking comfort food. That's not necessarily always a bad thing, because sometimes something comforting is a lovely thing.
And it lifts you and it's okay.
That's right.
Yeah. But perhaps if 3 days later you're 3 dress sizes up, you might just want to ask yourself, is there an orange light on here? I think it's really important not to judge yourself in these changes, not to speak negatively to yourself if you are eating an entire bar of chocolate.
Yeah.
Just say to yourself, orange light.
We may have just a day here and then when that's what we do. I'm not so sure that's a bad thing. It's when we're noticing it's a pattern that we keep going to that whole bar of chocolate when
It has an unhealthy effect on you physically, emotionally, mentally.
that's what we're talking about as being a change that isn't good, an unhealthy change.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned all this, Helen, because I just realised, yes, that when I am eating an entire packet, you know, those huge super packs of chippies,
Yeah.
I can sit there and say, orange light.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would have just sat there and ate it and sort of knew I was doing something that wasn't really healthy in any way. But if I can say to myself, orange light, it means, yeah, I can stop for a moment and see, okay, something needs my attention. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. And it's quite different than, say, you're having a movie night and, hey, let's have some fun snacks. That's quite different, isn't it? We're not saying don't have enjoyment.
Okay. So another change, there might be changes in your moods. It's really hard to, I think, identify this one because sometimes it's hormones, sometimes it's just other people. There can be many, many reasons. But when I talk about changes in your moods, I'm thinking more of reacting to something in a way that you wouldn't normally react. I think during last week's episode, I shared that I went from 0 to 100 on the anger scale, and I don't normally do that. So maybe you might find that you're reacting or overreacting to something that you'd normally just laugh about or accept or just get a little annoyed about, but there may be an extreme reaction to something.
I went through a period of time a few years ago where I'd wake up crying. Now that was probably hormone changes, but even that's an orange light, isn't it? That's not usually how I am. So checking out with the doctor or whatever the causes of these changes in your mood, if that's an orange light, it's worth investigating. You might need a doctor, you might need a counsellor, you might just need to sit and think, you might just need to sleep, whatever it is.
You might just need to go to the beach and go for a nice walk in the fresh air. It could be a myriad of things. But
That's right.
The point is that the orange light is a warning. It's just a friendly warning.
Yeah.
Okay, there could be changes in your tolerance levels. Maybe there's changes in your activity levels. If you're a person that is normally very active and you love to go running or walking or any of those things, and all of a sudden you just don't want to do it anymore, or there's no joy in it for you, you know, that's an orange light. So these are just some changes that you might notice in yourself. And when those changes occur, it could be that there's an orange light on for you that's just saying, hey, something needs my attention. Okay, and so we're just going to very quickly look at what some of these changes might look like or feel like. Because your body, your emotions are actually letting you know. They're informing you. They're just, pieces of information and data.
And those signs can be in our body. We might be feeling tension, tight muscles, a feeling of exhaustion.
Racing thoughts or no thoughts.
Often it can be really harsh self-talk.
What kind of talk do you mean, Helen?
So I would mean really negative on yourself. Why do I always, that was so stupid, that was so dumb. Might be quite excessive, harsh self-talk.
And any harsh self-talk isn't good for you. What else? You might feel, or you might not know how you feel.
Yeah, just feel confused.
Like tearful, wanting to cry.
Really low energy, forgetting things.
And maybe shopping a lot, excessively, or spending too much and eating too much. So we want to invite you to, over the next week or two, just think about what your orange lights might be and to try and be aware of them. Try and be aware of when that orange light is on and remember that something needs attention and what it might look like for you. So that's our invitation to you this week. And what we're going to do now is talk about one cause of the orange light. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so in a car, when the orange light goes on, the orange light is not the problem. Something else has caused that orange light to switch on.
So it might be low oil. You need to check your oil. Low tire pressure. Yeah.
Great. So it could be anything like that. And it's just a warning, that's the orange light. So emotionally, when your orange light goes on, then in order to make sure that you remain healthy and you can keep functioning in an uplifting way or a way that's helpful for you and for those around you, before you get to the red light, you need to work out what the cause of that orange light being switched on is. So we are just going to share one cause that might switch on an orange light for you. So to introduce this cause of the orange light being switched on, Helen's going to share an experience we had the other day.
So we are in the process of expanding the work that we do into creating videos, which we'll tell you about in some further episodes. Thank you. Thanks for coming to share that with us. Thank you. So we went to a park nearby here, and it's beautiful near the water, as you'll see if you go onto our website, because that's where we took one of the videos. Anyway, we were discussing our work. We were sitting in the park, and it was starting to get quite windy. It's winter time here, and I was getting quite cold.
We'd been there like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, filming and planning. So the cold was starting to sink into our bones a little. And the thought came to me, we should stop now. We've done a lot today. We should stop. And I looked at Ruth and thought, oh no, she might not be ready to stop now. And I was thinking about Ruth while I'm starting to get quite cold.
And in the meantime, while Helen was thinking that, I was feeling bone cold, and I actually turned my chair around away from the breeze so that the breeze was coming to my back, hitting my back first rather than my front. And I sat there and thought, oh no, she looks comfortable, so I'll just stay and I will freeze.
So here in our thoughts about the other one, we're both freezing. And I finally came to the point where I said, it's getting so windy and cold. Do you want to go? And Ruth said, I am freezing. And I realised as we were driving away, why didn't I just listen at that point when I knew I was cold and needed to finish? We'd actually exhausted ourselves with ideas and planning, and it really was time to finish.
So why are we sharing this with regard to one of the causes of the orange light being switched on? We realised after a lot of discussion later that both of us are overly responsible. And the question from us to you is, are you too responsible? And how do you know? So we've got a few questions that we'll share, and we just want you to think about them, because as we said them to ourselves, we started laughing.
The first question is, do you say yes to something that you don't really want to, and then you feel resentful? Oh, no, I never do that.
Boy, have I done that many times. And it could be to loved ones or just people you know at church or
Work.
at your
Work
colleagues.
Yep. Your children might ask something of you, or you might be a mum at school. You take your kids into school and you get asked to bake something, and you say yes, or you get asked to come and help at tuck shop, and you know that's going to be a big load, but you feel obliged to say yes, and then later you feel resentful.
And I just a little cue, a hint there, just go to Costco.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So another question you might want to ask yourself is, do you frequently pay attention to others' needs but neglect your own? Boy, I know lots of people that do that. Mm-hmm. Lots of my friends who often will go out of their way to help others, but sometimes they neglect their own health or their own well-being.
Yeah, just hearing that makes you feel compassion, doesn't it? That's the compassion we should have for ourselves, to sometimes say,
yeah,
I really can't do that at this time. Love to help you, but I just am not able to. Another question we have is, do you get annoyed with people who are irresponsible? Why would we have that as a question, Ruth? Because isn't it fine to be annoyed with people?
Well, I think it's because you're being overly responsible again. You're taking on, you're feeling responsible for the way that they may behave or may react or respond to different things. It comes to a point, I think, where you take that on board so much that then it's reflected in your mood. It changes the way that you might be feeling that morning. You've gone from arriving at work and feeling really happy, and someone at work hasn't done something. And yes, there will be an initial annoyance, but sometimes overly responsible people, like you and I have been in the past, will take that on board, will take it personally.
I think,
does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think that's an important point to focus on for a moment. If we went back to, do you say yes to something and then feel resentful? I think we often say yes because we're feeling responsible for the other person's request. We're hearing a need and we don't want to let them down, and we're feeling responsible for the weight that they might be carrying or the request that they have. We feel responsible to fill it.
Oh, just a little disclaimer here. We're not saying go out there and be mean and say no to everything.
I was looking forward to that. No, we're coming from a space really of being people who have said yes a lot. So I think the difference is you say yes because you'd actually really love to do it. But if you know that you're saying yes and it's going to be detrimental to you, that's what we're talking about when being too responsible, because we're not responsible for how that other person responds to our I'm really sorry, but I can't. We're not responsible for how they respond. We're also not responsible for what they will do then. Who will they ask now if we say no? Well, it's actually not our responsibility. That's up to them. Not that we don't care about them, but if we carry that load, we're actually really weighing ourselves down. And if you're someone out there who's done that, you know how that feels.
Yeah. Our first responsibility is always to ourselves.
And then we're freer.
And healthier.
Yes, healthier to help other people. It's just like that great example on an aeroplane. If there's a problem, the first person you put the mask on to get oxygen, you put it on yourself, because if you're dying, you can't help that other person. But if you give yourself some oxygen, then you can share it with your child or whoever else is next to you. That's what our message is today, is about looking after ourselves.
So you can see how being overly or excessively responsible and thinking that you're responsible for everything and everyone else can actually be a cause of the orange light being switched on. So the orange light is on. You recognise that it's on because maybe you've been feeling ultra tired or you're snapping at people or whatever. Let's take this question of are you too responsible to the next step. What you can ask yourself, there are a couple of questions and probably a lot more, but we're just going to share 2 questions. The first question you can ask yourself is this my personal responsibility? Okay, so we're going to give you an example about teenagers. You tell them so many times to do their room, and then you think to yourself, oh, look, I can't stand it anymore. I'm just going to go in and clean it, even though you've got many other things to do. Stop. There's an orange light there. Is this my personal responsibility? Well, to keep their room clean, no, it's not. And sometimes we jump in and that doesn't help them learn to be responsible because of our excessive, over-responsible
way of thinking. And sometimes that means this is going to feel uncomfortable. So there's some acceptance in there.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so what's the second question, Helen?
So the second question is, what is my first responsibility here in this situation? And only you will know the answer to that, but that's an important question to think about. What is your first responsibility in that situation where you're feeling uncomfortable?
And it may be that you're in a good situation and it's okay.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
you to help and you're all right. But it may be that you're not.
Your family might need you more. You might need you more. You might need time for you. You may just have such a big load already that you just can't take something else
That
on
one more thing.
is not okay at this time. We'll repeat those 2 questions to help you remember them.
So, is this my personal responsibility?
And what is my first responsibility here in this situation? Well, that's a lot to think about this episode.
So just remember the orange light. Identify when the orange lights are showing you. Be very aware of what's happening to you. And then once you know what it is, have a look at the cause and pay some attention to it.
And we will talk with you next week.
Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
It was so cold that I turned my back. Sorry, I'll just wait a minute. Are you all right, Helen? She's choking in the background, listeners.
Just try not to cough while you talk.
We don't want you to be audio witnesses to her death.
I'm back. Yes. We've been eating peanuts.